John from Canada is calling back on Truth Wanted. John, you're live. What's going on?
I'd like to know what made you lose your faith in Christianity? Because I know you were once Christians.
Oh no, not this guy.
What? Sorry. What was? Can you repeat that? I really couldn't hear you.
I know that you two were once Christians. So I want to know what made you lose your faith in Christianity.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a lot of things, right? I don't think I had a very sort of philosophically sound belief in Christianity. I don't think it held up to scrutiny very well.
Yeah.
In historically, scientifically, like in a lot of aspects, my ideas, because Christianity encompasses like a lot of different ideas, and pretty much every idea I had that was related to Christianity was questionable under a lot of different lenses. So, like for example, the idea that Jesus rose from the dead, I think that's questionable. The idea that there is a God who can talk to people and influence world events, I found that to be questionable. Basically, most events described in the Bible, I find to be historically questionable. So, yeah, I kind of realized that my standards of evidence, as they grew higher, I realized the Bible and other parts of Christianity didn't really hold up. So that's why I'm not really a Christian anymore.
And that's a nice way of putting it,
Mhm.
almost diplomatic, really. But like I would say that it's kind of that, the why would I believe for anything in this book? I have a shelf full of thousands of books that all tell stories about how you can be a better person through the lens of fiction. Why would I not think that those were true, but I would think that this one book, everything in it was true that's been said and it's been inspired by God? But why couldn't I write a book and say it was inspired by God? No one would believe me. So it, like, when I started to think about things, again, like through the lens of reality. So when I was a child, it was really easy to believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and all of these things because I had zero experience with existing on the planet. But as you get older, those beliefs start to fall away and we start to think, well, that seems silly. Santa obviously doesn't come into my house and leave presents under the tree, but I will believe that a man died and then came back to life 3 days later just because it was in this book that somebody wrote thousands of years ago. Like that was like a big step for me. And then seeing how much this book was used to control human beings, to control us, how we behave and what we do with our own bodies and things like that. So, I'd say that's like just a little piece of it. Of course, I could write a book myself of all the reasons why I don't even want to say I left the religion. It wasn't that. It was that I started to realize, why do I believe these things as though they're true? Because I have no reason to do so, except that other people told me to. So I'd really say it was the fact that when I started realizing that I could think for myself, um, then it made no sense to continue believing in something that doesn't exist.
Yeah. So there you go, John. That's both of our answers in full. What do you think?
It makes sense. It makes total sense. If you listen to those stories or if you read those stories in context, it makes total sense. That it's very hard to believe.
I mean, are you saying but the Bible, like all Bible stories in context, make intuitive sense or make enough sense to where they are believable? Like, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that if you took those stories out of the Bible, like let's say you just heard the stories and let's say God and Jesus had nothing to do with it, it makes total sense why you wouldn't believe it. Because let's face it, the idea of the world being created in 6 days, a man being born of a virgin and coming back from the dead, does sound preposterous.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
See, here's the other thing. Let me just throw this in real quickly too. I also realized at a certain point that here's the Bible. Other parts of the world have different books. So how, how was I to know that this Christian book was the real truth, but not that Mormon book and not that Islam book and not uh, any of the other books or myths that these religions have been based on, like, do those people all die and then they're burning in hell and they just don't understand why? Um, when I started realizing, like, why would this one be the true one when there are thousands of other sets of beliefs that are based on other things and their books tell them that they are the right one? So how can any of us know which one is the right one?
That's
That's
a good
another
question.
reason that was just like like, how can you know that the Bible is the one that is actually true when you also know that there are even more people who believe in the Quran? Have you read that book? How do you know that
Oh,
that
I've
one's
never read
not
the Bible.
true?
Oh, we don't. Any one of those books could be the truth, or none of them could be the truth. They all can't be the
So
truth.
so why would I sacrifice my life and the things that I want to experience in it following one of those books when we know, you concede, that we can't know which one of them is true?
So, so I take it that at one point you had faith, and then you lost it.
I had faith because I was a child, and my parents told me that this was the thing, and I went to a church group that showed me this terrifying movie called Left Behind and told me that if I didn't sit there and say out loud that Jesus Christ was my savior, that all my friends and family would be gone and I would be alone, and I was a child, so that scared me. So they used fear to make sure that I would fall in line with this belief system. um, so I don't know if you can even call that faith. Was that faith, or was that just me being afraid based on fear tactics being used to scare me into believing something?
I would say that was fear.
Yeah. So I don't think that fear is faith. And so I think it's good to not be afraid. I don't want to be controlled with fear. Do you?
No, I do not. So
Okay.
may I ask?
So, you ready to be an atheist?
Well, I would like to know what exactly do you have faith in? Just out of curiosity.
Um, I have complicated feelings about the word faith. I think that faith really kind of does mean believing without question. And I think that that's not necessarily a good thing for anybody. I think that like, historically, this term faith has been held up as this thing that is good objectively, but it can be used to manipulate people. I like to think that I have faith in, like, the concept of love, but what does that really mean? Yeah, I'm not sure if I have faith in anything, and I don't think that that is a bad thing. I mean, I think you'd have to sort of prove to me that it's somehow bad.
Okay. Because sometimes I look at the world and I say to myself, all right, well, the world is the way it is. But I wonder, what exactly are we doing here if there is no God?
Well, that's kind of a different thing, right? I mean,
Mhm.
asking what it is are we doing here if there is no God, the implication there is that there is a purpose before existence. And there's this whole philosophical movement called existentialism, right? You may have heard of
Yeah.
it. It started with this guy. Well, popularized by philosopher Albert Camus. Some say even
Oh, and
Nietzsche
Thoreau.
influenced. This idea that there is existence before essence. In other words, we kind of exist and then the purpose part kind of comes later. That seems to be the case when we look at our evolutionary history, when we look at the physical sciences in general. It seems to all indicate that we kind of arisen out of this primordial soup one day and we started evolving more and more since to a more advanced consciousness, and now
Mhm.
we can think about things like, well, why am I here?
Mhm.
But we do that without the hint of a creator. In other words, our lives may not actually be directed by anything higher than us. We may delude ourselves into thinking that they are, or we may really, really wish that they are and pretend like they are. But it doesn't seem to be the case that that actually exists, and that's a troubling thought for a lot of people. It certainly was troubling for me. But you can't really get around that. You can't really just
Yeah,
say, well, I don't want to believe in this because it's kind of scary. We kind of talked about this with Muhammad a little bit. It's like, yeah, I mean,
exactly.
fear is a motivator for both for staying in a belief and not exploring other kinds of beliefs. And I think I too was also afraid of not being a Christian anymore. Like that was definitely a theme in my Christianity, and a theme in a lot of other people's Christianity. So it's a little more nuanced
So
there, John.
I just
Yeah, like
have one question. Are you
Okay,
too happier now that you're atheist?
that's complicated.
was the
Interesting.
question, are we happy that
Y-
we
y-
are?
Yeah, are we happy now that we're atheists? What do you think, Sin?
Oh, I mean, I am so happy. Like I
Hmm.
I don't live with shame burdening me in my existence. I
Hmm.
don't live with guilt simply for having thoughts.
Hmm.
I'm able to enjoy everything I do without feeling shame and guilt for simply existing and simply being a human.
Mm.
Um, and so I get to just be happy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. Like I also feel that like I can live my life, enjoy my life, and I get to make my own purpose on this planet. I don't feel that that I don't think there is a higher power that would give me a purpose. I mean, even if there was a higher power, why would that give me purpose for my life? Like
Hmm.
I'm just going to die eventually either way. So
Yeah.
like to me, I'm like I get there is no purpose, there is no objective purpose of life, and therefore I get to make my purpose while I'm here. And does it have lasting effects? I don't know, and probably not. And eventually the sun is going to explode and there will be no more people on this planet, and what difference will it have made at that point?
Hmm.
None. So all I can do is in the time that I am here and that I do exist, try to live my life with my own purpose that I've decided for myself and make it good and be happy and hope that rubs off on other people. And like, that's enough for me. That's not
Yeah.
scary for me. That's more than enough.
Yeah, I mean, like I was happy in some respects when I was a Christian because I thought that God was ordering my life, that I didn't have to worry about some of these bigger questions because the big guy upstairs was sort of taking care of me. And now that I don't have that, and I've kind of, as an adult, I have to orient my own life and have my own direction. Is it intimidating? Is it scary sometimes? Absolutely. I don't know what I'm doing most days of the week, but I figure it out just like every other human being on earth, and I get by. And there are moments of happiness and joy. Are they eternal? Do they give me everlasting happiness? No, but there is similarly this conception in Christianity that somehow following a God ordained life is somehow more meaningful than any other conception of life, and I question that. Right? If you believe in a theology that suggests that your eternity is going to be spent in heaven singing praises to God literally forever, I fail to see how that's any more meaningful than me having a short life, but a life that impacted other people, and had its mark in history, whether big or small. They seem to be equal in that regard. You could argue that one, at least
Mhm.
in my short span, it's the fact that some might even argue that it, because of its shortness, it becomes more meaningful in a way that it has something there that something eternal really doesn't. But again, different people will have different perspectives on that. So
Sure. But
yeah,
also, like, do I want to spend all of eternity singing praises to some god? Like, that doesn't sound great at all.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
like, no thanks.
yeah. So there you go, John. That's our answers to that.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to me. I'm glad you feel that way now. Thank you for your answers. Have a good night, people.
Oh, okay. Thank you,
Well,
John.
thank you, John.
Um, that
Was not
did
expecting that.
that that was John from Canada. Um,
Yeah, like I've seen him on this show a couple times and it was the opposite
I'm
experience.
kind of shocked. I'll be honest. I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah.
John, who has called in, well, I shouldn't say, but he has called in multiple times, and he has been, shall we say, controversial in his takes. I mean,
Mhm.
we've had some back and forth, and it's gotten a little heated, but that was the
Mhm.
most calm, the most like serendipitous I've ever seen him. I don't know what his deal was, but he just asked questions and then went about his day. That's new.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's never happened.
Yeah.
So if
Well,
maybe
you're welcome.
it, I mean, I don't know if it's a bit. Is John, are you thinking about, like, are you rethinking things and you're sincerely seeking answers? I hope that's the case.
I would love that.
I won't presume because I don't know the guy. I don't know what his intentions are, but that was weird. That was different. John, if you want to call in and you want to have conversations like that, you're more than welcome to call in again, because
Hell yeah.
that was different from anything I've seen from conversations previously.